The following podcast has been paid for by the middle-aged Outlaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 24 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. We are in June 1998. Summer loving, Adam.
Yeah.
But before we get to all the wonderful things that WWF and WCW have got for us, just a couple of things to get to before we get to their first. It's Adam's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Adam.
Thank you. Yeah.
Another year on the clock.
Yeah, I'm feeling every bit of it as well. Yeah.
If you were to liken your age to a wrestler, do you think you could pinpoint? Actually, forget that. You are almost bang on the age of Sergeant Slaughter when he was sporting that beautiful turquoise turtleneck when we saw him at that last pay-per-view when he said, "I will represent Mr. Farouk." There you go.
So if I mumble, forget how to count, and just generally can't speak, I'm just going to blame that specific age.
There you go.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, and then you think about someone like an AJ Styles or a Christian who I believe is like 49 or something, which is just...
Yeah, I think they age a little bit better these days, the more modern ones.
You think?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention was we're almost, I think I said just now, we're 8 days out from our 1 year anniversary of our very first show. What did we do? Top 5 heel turns?
I think that was it, yeah.
It sounds like we recorded it in a cave in like Afghanistan or something. But here we are, 24 episodes later, still going strong.
I suppose if you want to improve every time, the real key is starting out quite bad.
There you go.
Because then it's a lot easier.
Aye. And I mean, by episode 48, imagine the quality.
Yeah, you would think.
Well, so June 1998, I've got some facts for you about June 1998, Adam.
Go for it.
I'm on my game this fortnight. So June 1998, the English rapper Dave was born on the 5th of June 1998. Okay. Don't know if you're aware of his work.
Is he the guy from the TV show?
Is that a joke?
There's a TV show called Dave.
Okay. Are you sure it's not a TV channel called Dave?
No, I'm aware of that, but no, I've been watching this TV show about an English rapper, and the show is called Dave. It's on BBC Two.
Okay, I don't know. I've no idea.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's quite funny.
Okay, there you go. Recommended by the Middle-Aged Outlaws. The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey, was released in cinemas in the US in June of 1998. Sex and the City premiered on HBO in America. Know you're a big fan?
I'm aware of it. I was a big fan of The Truman Show. That was a very, very clever film.
Me too. Kind of makes me want to go watch it.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan won his 3rd straight MVP, leading the Chicago Bulls to their 3rd consecutive NBA championship win over your Utah Jazz, Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. That does not seem like it should be over 20 years ago, but never mind.
God. And the very first ever Glastonbury Festival was held.
Wow.
I'm going to give you a chance to guess the 3 headliners. So,
1998, Glastonbury. You would think it'd be a big deal. 3. Okay, I'll guess Radiohead, Oasis, and The Verve.
Those are good guesses. I think that the Drugs Don't Work and The Verve's sort of big spike. I think that maybe came 1997. That's a good guess. None of them are right, but they're
Damn
good.
it.
You were close with Oasis. Think when they were thinking wrestling. Think of their rivalry Blur. Yeah. I guess Blur with the Saturday. We had Primal Scream.
Okay.
And we had Pulp.
That sounds like quite a good show. I would have enjoyed that.
There you go. I'll try and remember to do that for the next. Can't promise.
Just make us feel even older.
That's a fair point, actually. So this show, June 1998, we've got WWF's King of the Ring, and we've got WCW and NWO's Great American Bash. In the spirit of getting the good stuff over first, Adam, that's what we're definitely doing. We'll start with WCW.
Okay. What direction do you want to go? Because we've listed some positives about the show and some negatives about the show. So
yeah, we definitely don't want to be breaking down each match. That's a certain. Let's talk likes and dislikes.
Okay.
And let's tee it up before we go anywhere. So this is our 8th annual Great American Bash. We're in Baltimore, home of your Ravens.
I'm not. I can take or leave the Ravens. I don't mind them. I don't particularly like them either.
Okay. Looking across the match card, some of the storylines on the go. We of course, we've got the splinter of the NWO. We've got Hollywood NWO and the Wolfpack. They seem to just be referring them to black and white and red and black. Sometimes they're referring them as Wolfpack. We've got Booker T and Chris Benoit have been going back and forward on a best of 7 series. So we've not. This is WCW, so obviously this is not the 7th match. This is the 8th match. The 7th match was ruined by Bret Hart trying to recruit Chris Benoit for the red, the black and white, the Hollywood faction of the NWO. That was just needlessly complicated as far as I'm concerned. What else we got? We've got Jericho and Malenko have still got their beef going on. Chavo and Eddie I've got to a point where they're going to have a match. Goldberg's on 99-0. And I don't want to talk about Hogan. You can explain what's going on with Hogan. Savage, Piper. God.
I was thinking, it's pretty much the headline of the whole show. We could just not even reference it. Just pretend it never happened.
Nonsense. With the tag team titles, that seems to be the sort of main event, which is odd, but this sums up WCW in everything. The main event of this pay-per-view is for the tag team titles, and it's a singles match between Sting and the Smoking Giant. Yeah. Where should we start? Dislikes or likes?
I suppose it depends how we want to start the show. Do we want to start off hot, talking about positives and really getting going, bring ourselves down a little bit with the negatives, which we know are going to come? I don't mind. I've got them all listed here in front of me.
Okay, let's start with likes. Let's go positive. Start with likes. Dislikes often come with a bit of swearing and fun, so let's do some likes.
Okay. These aren't the most straightforward because in some of them there's a little bit of crossover, but I can kind of talk about these as I go. But the first positive that I would like to bring up is not just the storyline, but the match as well between Booker T and Chris Benoit.
Yep.
I think you mentioned the Bret Hart interference, which I get they maybe wanted there to be a bump in the road and not a clean finish to what had been the final match of their best of 7 series. But I think they could have done it in a different way and not involved Bret Hart. That seemed a little bit unnecessary to me. But however, aside from that, these are two guys, Booker T and Benoit, who we've seen over quite a few previous shows, and they've been involved with each other storyline wise fairly recently. The idea is that they have had a best of 7 series to determine who the number 1 contender is going to be for Fit Finlay and his. I'm going to talk about that element later on. But anyway, what belt is it? It's the TV title belt.
Yeah.
So Booker T had been quite a long reigning TV champion. He'd had a few matches with Benoit over the course of the last few pay-per-views, and being the TV title, I think it's defended on most of the TV that they do. And the idea was that Benoit had initially sort of cost Booker T the TV title to Fit Finlay, so he's ended up as champion. They are the two sort of people jostling to be number one contender, and they've had a 7-match series between them to determine who that should be. I quite like that type of storyline. Excuse me. I like that it's being seen as too big for it to just be, a one-off, and then we determine who's deserving. And there's a sort of natural rivalry, but respect that's built between the two of them as well. We've had instances in the past of one of them trying to help the other out when the numbers game's caught up with them and they haven't necessarily wanted the help and things like that. But then the favour's kind of been returned the next time that the other one is in that predicament. We've had a bit of the finish that we're showing on TV from the TV clip from previous was supposed to be match 7, which Benoit won. However, he won after some interference from Bret Hart. He didn't want to take the win that way. So he, as a good babyface should, wants to win clean. And Booker T respects him for having, not just taking the cheap win and wanting to have this final match. So an 8th, but a 7th match is decided it would go ahead between the two. They are two that I really enjoy watching their ring work. I think they go together pretty well. I've always enjoyed their matches with others as well. And it actually made me, I didn't do it, but it made me want to actually go back and see what the full 7-match series or 8-match in the end series between them was. It's
quite a cool thing for them to put on the network, just to be able to I don't know if it's available. I'm assuming it's not, but it would be quite cool to watch through.
Yeah, like a special, just watch the 7, I keep saying 7, but it ends up being 8 matches in the series. So yeah, that was the feeling I was left with, having watched the build-up and watched this match, is I'd like to have seen the whole thing, which isn't, a lot of the shows we've watched that I haven't gone away thinking I want to see more. So that's pretty rare. And they're both, you're in this slightly strange dynamic of them both kind of being baby faces. They're both over with the crowd. There are some heelish actions over the course by more so by Benoit over the course of the last couple of months, but they are basically both baby faces in the eyes of the crowd. So it's not something you see all that often through, I suppose you could argue, the NWO, who knows who's playing what, but for them to make a big deal of a storyline that's basically babyface against babyface, I thought was pretty cool as well. And the match, I just really enjoyed it. It's basically what I expected it to be between the two. It's pretty aggressive. It's pretty hard hitting. It looks pretty stiff. But they both work it well. There's some great moves, great counters, a few really impressive suplexes and things like that. Just a really enjoyable match to cap what I thought was a really good story.
This was the first time that I watched a WCW match and thought that the small ring and the tight ropes really lent itself to a match. It felt like they were just sort of careering about the place and coming on a collision course non-stop, which really worked. To your point about it looking quite stiff, it felt like a match that both really, really wanted to win. It didn't feel choreographed or anything like that. It was just, it was one of my likes as well. It's probably the best match for me on the card. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd agree definitely in terms of quality of match. I didn't think there was anything. There's a few decent matches on here, but I didn't think there was anything that really came close to it, to be honest. And it did. They made it feel important, and it's very much a secondary title. But the whole program between them felt like it was more than that. It had gone above and beyond the TV title, and certainly gone above and beyond the winner getting to face Fit Finlay, which was the only negative about it for me.
It's a bit like Stacey Keibler and Tori Wilson having a match to get to go on a date with the Blue Meanie.
Wow. Yeah, I did. I don't think I have put it in my negatives, actually. Just the fact that not only did this feel so much bigger than what it's supposed to lead to, but the match quality was never going to hold up between Finlay and one of these guys. Yeah. He's not terrible, but he's not, at the level that these guys are at. And Booker T, who's gone on to win, doesn't have the same chemistry with Fit Finlay as he's got with Benoit. Yeah. And it just felt like a pretty big anticlimax after going through all this. Yeah,
it's almost a come down that match. I didn't put it on my dislikes, but I certainly didn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. How can you possibly live up to that? It's a shame for Fit Finlay, actually.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's weird booking. It was weird. I think you and I quite like the fact that Booker was being built with this TV title from when we started watching in January.
Yep.
The decision to take the belt off him for Finlay's felt weird. Yeah, or did they take the belt off him for Benoit and then Benoit dropped it to Finlay? I can't remember.
Finlay took it direct from Booker. I think that, I don't know whether they were always looking, thinking they've got something that works here really well and thinking, well, we could get a lot of matches out of this. We just need to think of a reason why. Mm. And then maybe them thinking, well, we can't have the title flip-flopping, every other match. But there could have been a different way. You could have said, right, it's a best of 7 series and whoever comes out on top is the champion at the end. Rather than saying whoever wins each match, the belt changes hands or stays with.
Yeah.
But yeah, the other thing I liked about it, I didn't feel like, certainly at the end of the match between Benoit and Booker, I didn't feel like Benoit, who was on the losing side, came out of it looking weaker. No. I felt like it kind of brought both of them up. And it wouldn't have been a surprise from here to see Benoit going in against somebody who's at a higher level than Finlay, because he even losing the 7 series, he feels like he's gone beyond that.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who Benoit is actually paired up with at next pay-per-view. I'm going to very quickly don't see his name on the next pay-per-view. Shocking. Yeah, and Booker T, spoiler alert, goes on to a match with Bret Hart at the next pay-per-view, so that'd be quite interesting.
That's. I know Bret Hart doesn't have the best WCW run of all time, but that type of matchup interests me a bit more.
Yeah, me too. Interestingly, I think at that time, round about this time, Meltzer had described Benoit as the best wrestler in the world. And you'd be pretty hard pushed to find somebody that would come close to him, I think, across both companies.
I think one of the things that leapt out at me when I'm watching it, because I hadn't, I probably hadn't seen many of his matches other than the ones that have been on the shows we've been watching recently. I hadn't seen an awful lot of his WCW work, but his selling is absolutely phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I remember it in WWE in his later days in his work, how believable he makes his opponent's offense look. And it's there for all to see in these matches as well.
Absolutely. You got any other likes from this card? I know it's slim pickings after this match, but
yeah, I've got so I've put down the Jericho Malenko thing. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the last show. With
less pumpkins on Malenko.
Yeah, and that is clearly a thing. He needs that type of gimmick. The only issue I had with it is for them to have gone through everything with Malenko. He's, just for storyline purpose, what they've done, they've held the belt up because basically the storyline, I think the situation was that Malenko was dressed as somebody else to win the Battle Royal to get the title match. Jericho didn't know Malenko was even involved in any of this. Then Jericho loses the belt to Malenko. I think it sounds like he's just whined and complained about it ever since losing it.
Said he's a victim of a conspiracy.
Yeah. So the title's been held up, so there's no champion going into this match between Jericho and Malenko. They have an okay match. It's a far longer match than the one they had for the title. You know, there isn't that surprise element. There isn't the you know what you're getting this time. Malenko out wrestles Jericho for quite a period of time early on. He's outmaneuvering him. He looks like he's got Jericho really frustrated. There's some good moves and counters between the two. Jericho eventually gets control. He's playing it really cocky in the ring. He's agitated by crowd chants, and it makes him delay and make mistakes and things like that, passing the control back to Malenko. I thought,
there was a little bit too much of that, wasn't there?
Yeah. I think they overdid it. They over-egged it. But I thought, in ring, it was a decent enough match. The finish that they go with is that I'm trying to remember the phrase that Jericho taunts Malenko by shouting. It's "You're nothing, just like your dead father."
It's unbelievable.
So when Jericho has said that, we've been through storyline where they've played into the fact that Malenko's dad, who I think was a famous wrestler himself, then a trainer, he has died, and they're using elements of this in storyline. And on hearing that, Malenko just explodes into a rage, attacks Jericho, flurry of punches, throws him into the guardrail, hits Jericho with the chair. So Malenko gets DQ'd. So in normal situations where it's a title match, where there's a champion and a challenger, the title would only change hands via pinfall or submission. In this scenario, and the announcers take a little while to, communicate this and explain it, and they seem more baffled by it than I think, you could have got to the conclusion a bit easier than they play it out. There's no champion. The title's been held up. So whoever wins this match by whatever method is surely champion. Jericho wins by DQ, and they've, you can see from that they've still got somewhere to go with this storyline. There hasn't been a clean, definitive, decisive win by Jericho, but he's now got the title back. I did think, is this a little bit of a shame for the Malenko character to get his big comeback, win the title, then lose it? But they haven't had him give it up in a way that makes him look inferior or weak. It's been on a, almost like a technicality, and sort of the heelish antics of Jericho have caused it. But I'm not hating the story, and I quite enjoyed the match. So that was, I was struggling a little bit to get all my positives from this, but I thought that was quite good.
Do you know what? I had this. I really liked the finish, actually. For WCW, it could quite easily be looked at as like, another sort of funky finish, but it made sense. It was totally logical. The thing that Jericho brought up to him, the way that Malenko snapped, was logical. It's not in his character, like he's not a Shamrock. He's not going to start throwing referees about the place. He's this sort of stoic guy that, he just goes about his business. So it all made sense to me. I liked the whole sort of silliness of Jericho running across the road and running away into the building, and them not really knowing. The like you said, the commentary team were saying, well, whoever wins is supposed to win the belt, and normal rules. Do they apply or do they not really apply? The disqualification, all that sort of stuff. I really liked it, actually.
Yeah.
That was a big like for me. After that, I'll be honest with you, Adam, struggling a little bit. I've got the fans sign that says Goldberg can jackhammer me anytime. There was aspects of Saturn and Canyon that I liked. It probably outstayed its welcome by about 8 minutes, and the ending to the match was messy to me. But I find Canyon fascinating to watch in the ring. I really liked him as Mortis. I think we've seen him once.
Yeah.
And I really like that gimmick, and I think even that gimmick would work now. But sorry, go on.
I did have in my notes for Kanyon and Saturn, that Kanyon just has something. There's something about him that's watchable and interesting. He's kind of got a charisma about him that I just don't think was ever fully capitalised on, really. So yeah, if again, struggling to get the likes for this one, I did note that. Yeah, I think I was full of hope, and I probably could have entered it as a heading for my likes before the card even started about Chavo and Eddie, but that fell a bit flat, unfortunately.
Do you know, like, I'm just looking at this card on Wikipedia, and the pacing of it was really odd. The first three matches are almost, the first three matches nearly take about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then the back end of the pay-per-view, I remember watching Sting Giant and doing that thing where you check to see how long's to go to see how many run-ins we're going to get, and it just seemed like I had hardly any time left. It's quite the reason I say that is because Chavo Eddie, the fans just were not interested in it at all. Yeah,
it's a shame, that one, because I think we'd both been really enjoying what's gone before and the intrigue about what way it could turn, and would Chavo go a bit dark, even though he's fighting against it himself and all that, and it just fell flat. I was really excited watching it, thinking I've been enjoying this so far, so I should enjoy what's about to happen. It just didn't hit.
It was terrible. It went really long.
Yeah.
They had Chavo acting almost sort of like split personality.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure whether to high-five the crowd, and then that was really odd to me. I don't know if I was missing something.
Nah, I think they've, made a leap and gone just too far with it.
A little bit cartoon, a little bit caricature with it.
Yeah, I also thought when the match ended, I was waiting for something after the match, because, this story's gone along and along and along, and then there was nothing. Basically, it was a crowd shot and then back to whatever's next.
The odd thing about it as well, to me, and it's maybe just bias from looking back at it, but to me, like, Eddie was so far ahead of him in the ring. It was weird that he beat him.
Yeah,
especially the way that they were wrestling. It wasn't. Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame, because it had been one of the better storylines on the go.
Yeah, definitely. We both definitely commented that we liked it. Can I have a bit of a moan on a dislike?
Go for it.
Twice on this pay-per-view. Once as it opened, and I think once before Hogan, Hart, Piper and Savage. Heenan and Schiavone basically summed up what was about to happen and said, "What do you think, Mike Tenay?" And Mike Tenay literally almost said the exact same thing that they said. And they're like nodding and going, really insightful. Twice he did it. Did you notice this?
Yeah, I noted it. I made note of it because it was really strange. It was like it was almost like they weren't listening to each other at all, because it was basically repeated almost word for word, and then no acknowledgement that it had been exactly the same as what had been said before.
Like a sarcastic, comment from Brain saying, like that'd have been quite funny, but no.
Yeah.
It was almost like he was translating it for another language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
really weird.
Yeah.
Michael Buffer. Michael Buffer.
What about him?
He's now ruining WCW pay-per-views for me.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
He is the master of the flying elbow. Is he, Michael? Do you like him? Does it bother you?
Nah, I've had my revelations about him, because I remember thinking, oh my God, Triple H is actually mocking him, because I was watching WWE at the time. I just thought Triple H was doing a bit. I thought he was doing a thing. And then I saw Michael Buffer and I was like, oh, wait a minute, now I get it. And then I felt really stupid. But other than that, I always think when I hear his voice, okay, they want this to be a big match then. That's the only thing that really crosses my mind. But in terms of what he actually says, I don't know, maybe I kind of zone out and don't pay attention.
It really annoys me. He's not a shadow on his brother. What other dislikes you got for this?
Right, this one is a little bit more it's not specific to this pay-per-view. It's just in general. And it's what are they doing with Bret Hart? Like, why is he involved in this Hogan and Bret against Savage and Piper? Why is he involved in this nonsense? Why is he stuck under Hogan's armpit? Why? And it's such a waste of talent. He's come in. They would have had endless possibilities about what they could have done with him. He has been red hot on their main rival company, had this massive public falling out, come across that he signed the WCW letters in the WWE ring. And then he just comes across and it's like, all right, Bret, you're just another guy. Go and buddy up next Hogan. You can be like Beefcake or whatever they call him now. Just kind of, stand there and do a bit, and then we'll have you interfere in some matches and, try and recruit some people. Why is he not just put in a proper rival, a proper feud that, I just don't get it, and it annoys me.
It's unbelievable. It's almost a skill. Or it's like someone's dared somebody. I bet you can't ruin Bret Hart. Like somebody says, it'd be impossible, and the whole thing about Vince saying they wouldn't know what to do with you. And it's like, people will say, well, I could manage Rangers or Celtic. I could win the league with Rangers or Celtic. And then somebody's went in and started playing a right back up front. As a laugh. I 100% agree with you. It's an absolute. It's just a joke. It's a mess. It's quite. It's quite depressing actually to see. You see him coming out in that match. He does look down in the dumps when he's coming out with Hogan, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he can't. I know, there's been the talk. I've listened to a few things about it, and I assume the truth of it is somewhere in the middle. That Bischoff says that when Bret came across, he did not get the WWE's version of Bret Hart because he was so devastated by everything that happened at the end and the way he left that he was never really the same again. But try and bloody motivate him.
No wonder.
Yeah.
You started him off being a guest referee for a match with Bischoff and Larry Zbyszko, and then getting involved in a screwy finish with, what was that, with Sting and Hogan? Was that pay-per-view in 97?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Even the way you introduced him, and I don't think he could wrestle. Well, just hold him off then.
Yeah.
Don't have the NWO coming out with Canadian flags the night after Survivor Series 97. Have, keep your powder dry, calm yourself down, and put together an actual, some sort of storyline and like timeline for him.
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
He must have been watching matches like Benoit and Booker T and thinking, just put me in with these guys. Just don't worry about where I am on the card. Just let me go in with somebody and have an actual wrestling match.
Totally. I was trying to think about this and trying to compare it to what AEW have done with CM Punk. And they've obviously brought him in, and he's, I don't know, I guess it's again somewhere in between him and Tony Khan, and he's wanted to work with certain people to lift them up, use his star power to lift them up. So he worked with Darby Allin, we spoke about that. He's worked with lots of other guys as well. And even if they did that with Bret Hart, so bring him in and have him go in with Benoit, Booker T, Guerrero, Jericho, I don't know.
There's so much talent there that he could have had a brilliant program with.
And then once he's done that, he's had these just pure wrestling matches, which is what Bret Hart's all about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe then have him get involved with your absolute nonsense at the top that's being run by about 6 different people with creative control. Even if he didn't want to do that, he had that match with Savage. It seems like it's sort of fell off of things, and the whole highlight now is, or the whole focus is Piper and Savage, which,
Yeah.
like you've got your commissioner involved in nonsense.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. It feels like the kind of thing there should almost be consequences for it. Like someone should be fired for not getting that right.
The thing is, Bischoff calls him bitter and said he was a depressed person. All that. Surely it's your job. You can't sit here 15, 20 years later and slag him off. It was your job to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I find his arrogance really, really annoying.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, that's probably about as heated as it gets on this.
Yeah, it's probably the thing that annoyed me most. And this show, I don't know, was maybe in my mind it coming to a head. Just seeing him stuck in there doing this. But anyway,
you feel like he's been dragged down. He's standing there with Nash, and Hogan's Hogan, and I don't know, Hogan's up to all sorts of nonsense. But at least I think in that match, Hogan Hart versus Piper and Savage, I think Bret tried to do some wrestling moves, if you know what I mean. He was still doing his stuff, but
it's tough going. I mean, I think that, the matchup, like you mentioned, Bret and Savage is of interest. I don't know that there's real in-ring interest in Piper here by this stage. I think he's done. Just even with what they're working with here, they could have done it better and got more out of it.
Well,
yeah.
If you think that was heat, wait till you hear my take on Reese versus Juventud Guerrera. No, I'm just joking. You thought that was a good idea. Let's have a giraffe fight a beetle.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I can see what they were trying to do. Trying to make Juventud, the guy with no quit in him, just keeps coming back for more, never beat by this monster. But, it didn't really do much for me.
What a nonsense.
You got any more rants you want to have?
Buffer, Tenay. I've actually written about Tenay twice in my notes. I was obviously quite annoyed about it. Nah. I just said Hogan and Hart versus Piper and Savage was so clunky and awkward. Like, they only get just over 10 minutes, but they do next to nothing in the match.
Yeah.
Few rakes of the eyes. Oh, it's terrible. It's really bad. That's supposed to be your top line stars. Let's
see if I can get you worked up about one more thing, right? Because you definitely mentioned this to me at some point through the week.
Yep, go on.
Sting in the Wolfpack.
Right. So you got a character, a babyface character. The NWO take over. He turns his back on the company because he's fed up with this sort of poison that's been injected, to use Vinnie Mac's description, into the company. So he disappears. He turns dark. He stays up in the what would you call it?
Rafters.
In the rafters, looking down, and he's went from this sort of ray of light to darkness and all that sort of stuff because of this faction. Fast forward a few months, and he's joined them, and he's wooing, and he's thrown up the Wolfpack sign, and he's got red face paint, and the guy that basically orchestrated it is now his best mate. What a load of absolute nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been the ultimate loner. They always played on the fact, I think he has quite a long relationship with Lex Luger, but beyond that, he was the loner. He spent a year being a loner, and then it's just like, let's just pretend that never happened. Really weird.
I could get if even if they played it as if he felt he had to align himself with someone. Well, they're taking over, so I may as well align myself with someone. They've got my back and all that sort of stuff. But he's just like all smiles, throwing up the Wolfpack sign, like, yeah, I'm a part of this. Like, it's amazing. What a nonsense. And the Giant coming out smoking, and Bischoff saying that the reason behind it was so that he looked like a badass. He looked like a fat, out of shape idiot.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all. The smoking thing, that was really weird.
Apparently, Bischoff also said on his podcast that he was trying to blend real life with the characters, and he wanted to take elements of Paul White's real life, which was that he was a chain smoker. Like, of all the he could have come out eating a bowl of cereal if he enjoyed eating cereal in the morning. Do you know what I mean? You're supposed to be presenting them as, like they're at the next pay-per-view, they're teaming up with NBA superstars. You're supposed to be presenting them as like these supposed real life athletes. He's coming out smoking.
The only thing it made me think was there were kind of two levels. One, I was thinking he can't be bothered with this. He has no interest in this match and being there or any of it. And the other side of it was like if you try to stay in storyline, it was like either can't be bothered with the titles, they're an irrelevance to him, so then why are they even bothering having the match? And also quite disrespectful to Sting. I didn't get any value in any of it. It just seemed weird.
Did you hear who the Giant had picked to be his partner if he'd won control of the titles?
No.
Did you not?
I think I missed it, although if you mention it I might.
The Disciple was going to be his tag partner.
Could have been the greatest tag team combination of all time.
Also, in that in the Hogan and Hart versus Piper and Savage match, did you see that the one thing that Beefcake had to do, he messed up. He hit whoever it was coming off the ropes with the belt right in front of the referee.
Yeah. Oh, that guy.
Oh, safe to say we didn't massively enjoy WCW's Great American Bash, is it not?
Yeah, I think the thing I've felt for quite a few of the pay-per-views I've watched is they do a lot of the wrestling early on. So you get some decent wrestling matchups early on. When those don't really hit, when they don't really grab you, because, I mentioned before I loved Booker and Benoit, and I thought Jericho Malenko was good. Beyond that, there wasn't really anything there that was grabbing me. And I think if that hasn't grabbed you, and you kind of know that the last couple of matches are just going to be a shit show, because it's everything that you've seen over several months. If you're not getting either part of it really right, you're just not going to enjoy the show.
Yeah, it's a slog, a big slog.
Yeah.
And while we're on a downward curve, just think about this. Benoit, Canyon, Eddie, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Roddy Piper, Randy Savage, all featured heavily on this card, all no longer with us.
Wow. That's a lot of names.
Is he? Oh well. Happy summer faces. Let's go over and see what WWF got for us, will we?
Yeah, go for it. I don't know. Are we better going negatives first and then we end on a high? Or
Let's do that. To be fair, I don't have a huge amount of dislikes, but you might. But before we do, let's set the table. 6th annual King of the Ring. We are in the Pittsburgh Civic Arena. Big storylines. Austin's still champion. He's come off the series with Dude Love. I'd read that the initial intention was to go for another one, Dude Love Austin, but they'd felt that just maybe that it had run its course, and I think you'd described that pretty well in the last podcast that we did. Our Mr. McMahon character is still developing. He's got his stooges with him, and that's a big part. I think I spoke about it, but I feel like he's probably the best character they've got on the TV.
Yeah.
DX and the Nation are kind of like your big feud that's going on. That's pretty much it. As far as the King of the Ring's concerned, we've got the semi-finals on the actual pay-per-view. So we've got The Rock taking on Dan Severn. Dan Severn's went through the nation. He beat D'Lo and he beat Owen.
Yep.
He's now at The Rock. And we've got Shamrock versus Jeff Jarrett. So, start with your dislikes. This pay-per-view, obviously, is pretty much famous for one thing. However, we'll talk about our dislikes and we'll talk about our likes. Let's go.
Okay, so the first dislike that I'm going to mention is fine. It's in isolation. It doesn't link to anything else. So I can just have a little bit of a rant. So we've got Al Snow, who has started appearing in WWE. And he's kind of got this storyline dynamic going on with Jerry Lawler, who I think had tried to use him as his lackey at a point, and now Al Snow wants to get a meeting with Vince McMahon. He wants to get a job. He wants to be in the company, and he's become like an irritation to Jerry Lawler. This all leads to a match where if Al Snow can win a match, he is going to get his meeting with Vince McMahon. He is going up against Too Much, which is Scotty Too Hotty, the inventor of the worm, and Grandmaster Sexai, the son of Jerry Lawler. Although it's a weird dynamic, that one, because they always have in storyline JR winding him up about it and Lawler refusing to acknowledge that he's his son. But anyway, we're going to have a match, and it's those two against Al Snow, and it's, it looks like it's a handicap match type situation. Although Al Snow has head with him. Jerry Lawler gets introduced, surprisingly, as the special guest referee. JR's horrified by this. It's not fair. Lawler is playing the heel in the ring. He's refusing to count when Al Snow's in good situations. He's basically shoving him about and removing him from any situation where he looks like he might get on top and things like that. This is all fine, but the finish of this is quite possibly the worst thing I've ever seen. We get Al Snow, he performs a move and covers, I think it's Scotty Too Hotty. And at the same time, someone has been thrown to Brian Christopher, who then leans down on Head, the mannequin Head, and Jerry Lawler counts the pin. I think Al Snow briefly thinks he's won. It hasn't. Brian Christopher's arm gets raised. What we see is that a bottle of Head and Shoulders shampoo has been attached to the bottom of the mannequin head. The shoulders were down on the mat, so the pin counted. So Al Snow lost.
Al Snow and Head lost. Al Snow
and Head lost. I just the story of the Head and Shoulders thing made me angry. It just really annoyed me. And I know that there's a lot of, nonsense going on at this point. I just, that must be my point where it's gone too far. Because I was watching it, and it's that thing where you start remembering that this happens, and you're just, this annoyed me.
Yeah, me too. The angle annoyed me because given what we've watched as far as the first two ECW pay-per-views of the year, Al Snow's headline both of them. And we've seen the crowd reactions to him, how ridiculously over he is. The whole thing that they made of his entrance with everyone in the crowd with the heads. And he comes back, and this is what they brought him back for. We spoke about the whole thing about, what's his name? I haven't total mind blank. ECW champion.
Shane Douglas?
Shane Douglas. We spoke about him. Could he have dropped the title to Al Snow and all that? Well, he's obviously been called back by WWF. This is what they brought him back for.
Yep.
This. It doesn't even... Yeah. Is it supposed to be entertaining? Obviously, it's nonsense. Total nonsense. I didn't want to see Jerry Lawler. It was like house show. Again, it was kind of like house show behaviour with the whole, showing a fist to the fans and all that sort of stuff. Fine. That's fun and entertaining and all that. Yeah, this is awful.
Yeah. That was my main... So I'm going to call it a standalone dislike, because I do have a dislike, but it's attached to something that I have a like attached to.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got another couple of dislikes if you want me to jump in with them then.
Go for it.
Despite his amazing theme song, I wasn't digging Dan Severn one bit. I thought him and The Rock just, like we've talked about The Rock and Shamrock having chemistry. Well, Severn and The Rock had whatever the opposite of chemistry is. They were absolutely terrible together.
Yeah.
The Dan Severn thing never really got over. I never really got it. I think the whole thing was supposed to be that people were supposed to expect that Shamrock and Dan Severn were going to be in the final, and they were going to have some sort of, like quasi MMA fight.
Yeah.
Maybe just sort of, like looking back and having the knowledge of what was going to happen, but like how would Dan Severn beat The Rock?
Yeah,
it sounds ridiculous because obviously he's a shoot fighter, but yeah, I never.
Yeah, I think the Dan Severn thing never worked. There's something Shamrock has from a natural charisma point of view that Dan Severn doesn't have.
100%.
And I remember at the time being slightly intrigued of, I keep being told these are two, MMA guys that have been right at the top, and the assumption that they would do a program with them at some point. I don't even remember them ever really making a big deal out of it if they did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I would have been, I remembered, I remember so much about this card without, even before I'd rewatched it. And I remembered it was Rock and Shamrock that were in the final. Yep. And I was happy to be seeing that because we've seen it work so well before. They like you mentioned, they've got natural chemistry. It just works. They click. Dan Severn is a little bit of a kind of a personality vacuum. There's just nothing there.
The thing that I did like about this was that we got D'Lo appearing, after there was a ref distraction, and we got D'Lo appearing with the whatever that is that he's wearing on his
chest protector. Yeah.
And I'm hitting an absolutely beautiful frog splash on Dan Severn for The Rock to win. I like that.
Yeah, it was nice story as well, because I believe Severn had been the one that he'd been in the match with where he got caught in the hold, and that's when he got the injury. And I think he maybe keeps the chest protector for ages.
And like newer fans will like to know where the origin for Roman Reigns' ring attire came from as well.
I always liked D'Lo. D'Lo was great.
Yep, definitely. And also, this is the first, we spoke about this the last time, but this is the first pay-per-view where Kama Mustafa is announced as the Godfather.
Yeah.
The boys in the back call him the Godfather. Well, so does Howard Finkel now. Yep. Apparently. My other dislike was just Shamrock, Jeff Jarrett. It just served a purpose to get Shamrock to a final, basically.
I didn't love. There's something about this. I had it in my notes, but there's something about this Jeff Jarrett, and it's every time. I don't want to see him when he appears on screen. It's like this overwhelming feeling to change the channel, and I kind of always had that with this version of him. I think once he, became different characters, and I remember him teaming with Owen and things like that, and he'd have the guitar that he'd hit over people's heads. It's not that I was a fan of that, but there's something about this version where he's still being like, the country music singing guy with Tennessee Lee and all that. It just really, really irritated me. But he's a heel, so, maybe that was always the plan.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. Shall we talk about likes? Like, before we do, I feel like, with the exception of one of these matches, the first half of this pay-per-view was dull, boring, rubbish. The last hour is, maybe more, is just like complete box office. I've probably watched it about goodness knows how many times. Mm-hmm. So, there's some good stuff in here as well.
Yeah. The first sort of positive that I was going to mention, which isn't involving either of the two final matches, was we got to see Shamrock v The Rock again.
Yep.
And it just, for me, underlined, you know how we've gone through all this with The Rock facing Farouk a bunch of times?
Yeah.
It just made me even more think how bad that was, because he and Shamrock just have it.
These two are amazing. Totally.
Yeah. And they were just a perfect match against each other. We did have the sort of added element of Triple H in the announce team.
There are many things, many by things I am, but lingual's not one of them. The immortal line.
Yep. I mean, there's...
Wait, did I mean to say that?
There's a few things in here. I did, like, see when he's this version and he is pretty young and all that, and I must have been just probably too old to be laughing as much as I was at this, but I was still laughing a lot at it. And he's doing the, testes, 1, 2, testes, and all that.
3?
1, 2, 3? That got me as well. I found all that very funny at the time. Now when I hear it, I'm a bit like, come on. But it worked at the time.
It's amazing to me to think that it wasn't main event at this point. Because I feel like he's big. He's a big personality, and physically he's big. It's really funny to think that he was European champion for such a long time. I like that as well.
Yeah,
Taco Bell. I think they're talking about China's sitting on the Spanish.
Yeah. It was a good match, and it's for King of the Ring. It kind of makes sense to me that these would be the kind of guys in the mix at the stage they're at in their career to win it. I think we've always sort of thought, could they have maybe done a bit more with Shamrock and things like that? And this step, Shamrock goes on and wins King of the Ring. This step of winning it is quite often been the sign that the guy's about to be propelled to a higher level. Never really happened for him. But I did like the fact that so often in their program between the two, The Rock has got away with it. He's managed to sneak out of it. He's managed to weasel out in some way and keep his Intercontinental belt or whatever it was they were feuding over. But Shamrock got his win this time.
Nice and clean. And clean. Tapped him in the middle of the ring. I like that as well.
Yeah.
I like, for me, you're right there.
Yep, fine. Sorry, there was a door moved.
Another like for me that's sort of out with the sort of main event scene was X-Pac and Owen Hart.
Yeah.
For some reason, I think I've said, I had this on video, I can remember buying it on video, and that chair shot that X-Pac, they show a little couple of bits that's happened between the two of them. And I think on the Monday Night Raw, previous to the pay-per-view, X-Pac had hit Owen with a chair, and Owen needs to get staples in the back of his head. And the chair shot that X-Pac hits Owen Hart with, it's always made me think that looks like it's not like a sort of orthodox hit on the head, it's right at the back of his head. It looks horrible.
Yeah.
But I think this is X-Pac's first pay-per-view match that he's had since he's come back. Taking a rest from shooting on Bischoff to have a fun match. I thought it was a little short, but I'd like to have it a wee bit longer.
Yeah, that's what I put in my notes actually, because when you see these two guys are going up against each other, I was pretty enthusiastic for it. I thought this will be good, and one's in the Nation, the other's in DX. There's a natural story there. I think, and I don't know if this was the purpose, but by the ending, I was thinking I want to see more of this, and I don't know if there is any more of it to come, because it wasn't long enough, and there's always going to be interference. There was quite a bit of interference towards the end. But yeah, I was, from what was actually there, I enjoyed it. And I just was left thinking I could watch a fair bit more of this.
In a pay-per-view full of pretty extravagant bumps, there's one this match where Owen whips X-Pac into roundabout where the ring bell person normally sits in. He just flings him. He goes flying.
Yeah.
with reckless abandon. I like that. And I also enjoyed our very own favourite fat piece of shit coming out and interfering, taking out Mark Henry as well. It's good.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes that Vader jumps at Mark Henry, then falls several feet back himself.
I did think it was weird that China must have, like a Jake the Snake-esque DDT, because that managed to put Owen Hart away after a pretty short match. But
yeah,
I enjoyed it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, that probably leads us to not really know where to start, and like what's not been said about the Undertaker and Mankind.
Yeah, this is, I think we've talked before, we've probably both had friends who are not into or interested in wrestling and, play it off as that's fake, nobody can get hurt doing that. This was always one of the matches I would try to show people.
Yep.
To be like, come on. Because so much of this stuff cannot not hurt. These guys are doing some pretty brutal stuff in there, and this match is iconic. It's a match that I think everyone who's seen it remembers. And I was saying to you in the build up to doing this, I did go back and rewatch it, but I probably wouldn't have needed to.
Yeah.
So I've seen it so many times over the years. I think now matches I still watch it and I'm hugely impressed by it. There's a lot more, just moments of thinking, why did they do that? The bumps off the cage, off the cage and then through the cage are the obvious ones, but there's so much in here that now this match would be stopped after, I assume, the first fall or throw off the cage through the announce table, because they're so much more aware of head trauma and things like that these days than they were there, because this is where I link a dislike into a match which is such an incredible spectacle, which is the actual the punishment Mick Foley is taking. I can't imagine there's anyone that would be listening to us that hasn't seen this match. But I think they've always said when he goes off the top of the cage and through the announce table, the first big bump, that's actually fairly controlled. They know what they're doing there. He knows how he ideally wants to land on the announce table and things like that.
Which in itself, you listen to what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know how high that is. There's a bit of backstory that we were talking about, the fact that both these guys are pretty banged up going into this.
Mm-hmm. Undertaker's got a broken bone in his foot or his ankle, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know about Foley, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think from, you and I have spoken about this before, but I think from what I've read is Foley's a lot of Foley's issues in advance of this match are mental, as far as he's terrified of not having as good a match as Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker had in Bad Blood 97 when they had the very first Hell in a Cell match, and his whole sort of thing was like, I need to be able to top this, and I don't think I'm able to. I think it was him and Terry Funk had spent a day in Titan Towers, sitting watching the match over and over again, trying to work out what to do.
Yeah.
And Funk had said, why don't you start up on the cage and have him throw you off as a joke?
Oh, no. So it's Terry Funk's fault.
Why don't you have him? No, I can't do it.
That wasn't bad for a starter. So they've had, and it is spectacular seeing them just start on top of the cell.
Amazing.
Because you've not seen that before. It's such a brilliant image. And then there's just like this moment where they're fighting towards the corner and Undertaker just takes it. I'm sure he isn't pushing him at all. It's all Foley doing it himself. But the visual is Undertaker throws Mankind off the corner of the cell and he falls down and through the announce table. Unbelievable watching it, because you're just, it doesn't, I've talked before about the fact that, after the first time you see a film that has a big twist, it's never the same again because you know what's coming. And this, it's never going to have the same hit as the first time, but I still watch and think,
aye,
it's incredible to watch.
I can still watch that and get goosebumps. There's something beautiful about it. I think it's the noise from the crowd as he's falling, and then the bang of the table.
Yeah.
Something really, mesmerising about it.
You can see the crowd as well. It's a shock look, because I think it's almost they've actually done this. I can't believe what I've just seen. Imagine being there in the crowd, because it's impactful enough watching it, on a TV.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I've not read up enough or heard enough about what sort of condition he's, legitimately in, when they have every storyline reason to be able to bring out some medics because, the guy's just come off the top of the cage and through the announce table. So this isn't, for me, if I'm, Vince McMahon and I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, well, yeah, we can just have real life medics out there because that's exactly what you would do. And I know, talked previously about the fact that they don't have the same knowledge of, impact on the brain and concussions and all that trauma to the head. But I don't know what condition he's actually in at the point that they start trying to remove him from the ringside area.
I think they say it separated his shoulder.
Right.
I think I've either read or heard that before.
And then they do the stuff. I think they have to lift the cell to allow the medics to get the stretcher and stuff around.
Yeah.
And
Undertaker's going up and down on the thing.
Yeah, he's still stood on top of it. And I think he's just, waiting for okay, I'm not going to come down until I kind of get my cue. Because in who knows what of this is actually planned, or what of it was, just Mick deciding, right, I'm okay to go, so I'm just going to get off this stretcher. I'm going to let it take me a little bit back, and I'm going to be the guy that stands up because I want to keep going.
This is sorry to interrupt you, but this is the beauty of this match. It's the whole thing about wrestling. You don't really want to know what's, or you kind of want to get to a position where you're blurring what's real and what's fake.
Yeah.
And what's a spectacle, and this is the perfect. Like you say, you don't know how far is he supposed to even be on that stretcher? Is this all planned? It can't be, because he's taken the most ridiculous bump on the head.
Yeah. And I think at this stage, when I was speaking to you about this match before we were recording, you can play it either way. If you own the company and this is all happening on your time, if that is the end of that match because he cannot get up and go again, that's fine. Absolutely. Nobody from a value for money point of view is going to say, we got screwed there. We didn't, we only got a few minutes.
It's almost more impactful. It's difficult to say, that's very hypothetical. But the fact that he's come off the top of that thing and hit the table and then got off it and went back in the ring and done everything that he's done, is almost like a way of saying, well, look, it is fake. Like, look how he's fallen.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But that's kind of beside the point.
Yeah. So either way, he's part way, going up the ramp, and he decides he's going to get off the stretcher and he wants to go back.
How does he climb the cage?
Yeah, I have no idea. And I think Undertaker's actually climbing down the other side. Uh-huh. And when Mankind starts climbing the sort of ramp side of the cage, Undertaker starts going back up the other side.
A lot of the fans start going mad then as well. I love that.
Yeah.
It's almost like, oh, you're going up. Well, so am I then. I'll meet you up there.
Yep. And then we've got them both up on top again. There's a chair up there. Did Mankind take that up initially? I think he might have. Yeah. So yeah, there's a chair up there, and they're starting to fight again, and then I believe it must be covered in one of Mick Foley's books, the second bump is actually the far more dangerous one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you mentioned something to me about the fact he could easily have been killed doing this.
Yeah, he said that. So when Undertaker chokeslams him, he keeps a foot on the floor or on the cage, on the top of the Hell in a Cell, and he'd said that if he'd went off his feet, he would have killed him, because he would have went up in the air and then down and landed probably on his head or on his neck, whereas the way that he did it, he kind of fell backwards, but he falls at the most ridiculous of angles.
Yeah. And then the chair follows him through as well.
Yeah.
I think at the point where he hits the mat, I think it's Jerry Lawler says something like, "That's it, he's dead."
Uh-huh.
And it is one of those. I should have mentioned it for the first bump as well. It's one of those matches where some of the commentary work is iconic.
Oh, like JR's finest hour.
Yeah. What is it? As God is my witness, he's broken in half, or something like that.
Exactly. By God, they've killed him.
Yep. And these guys, I think there's a few moments where JR's shouting, "Will someone stop the damn match?"
Yep.
And I believe, unless he was involved in the booking and all that at this time, at all times when he could avoid knowing what's supposed to happen, JR did avoid knowing what was supposed to happen, because he wanted his reaction on commentary to be as realistic as possible, as if he is seeing this for the first time and did not know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that everything we are hearing from the announcers is pretty genuine. They're egging it a bit and things like that, but I think they cannot believe what they're seeing.
Yeah, and who can blame them? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I always wonder, watching that now, what Undertaker must think watching that. If he feels remorseful, however, especially the way things have changed as far as what you spoke about concussions and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I had heard Mick Foley had to talk him into doing this.
Right.
Like when he first came to him with the idea of, and then you throw me off the cell. Undertaker's like, no, nah, we're just not doing that. What else you got? And then he eventually kind of wore him down, playing the card of we can't have a great match. I'm not in great shape. Look at what you did with Shawn in the first Hell in a Cell. You've got a broken foot. How can we possibly have a great match? And he eventually kind of wore him down into doing it. And I suppose it maybe feels a little bit different if, it's not your idea. He's not pitching, Mick, I'm just going to throw you off, throw you through, all that. Yeah. But still, I imagine as soon as it's happened, as soon as the bump's been taken, you're thinking, please get up, please move, something. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, so I've heard different things as well as far as that choke slam. I've heard that he wasn't actually supposed to go through, he was just supposed to get choke slammed on top of the cage. I kind of think how that would be true, because they're walking across it and it's given way.
Yeah.
As they're walking across it, but, or apparently the cage was supposed to give way a little bit and he wasn't supposed to go through it, all that sort of stuff. He ends up, I think he's legit concussed after that one. We get Terry Funk coming out to try and buy him a little bit of time. He gets choke slammed out his shoes. Poor Terry. We've got millions of different referees and medical people in the ring, and the Undertaker's sort of standing, looking over them all, like perfect for his character. He's stood there looking over them like some sort of evil dark lord.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favourite things about this is when he starts climbing through the cage and jumps down. I think it's Dave Hebner dives across the ring like he's going to get shot or something like that.
Brilliant.
And then we continue. We continue into a match.
It's almost like it's the start of the match, which is just messed up. I think, there is a few points when there's a close up and things like that of Mick Foley. He's not there anymore. And nowadays, even if you'd made it through the first bump, there's no way the match continues after this second one. It's absolutely no chance. The lights are on, but nobody's home. You can see it in his eyes.
Definitely, absolutely. He's then got, amazes me, you and I spoke about this, he's got the presence of mind to get the bag of tacks.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the presence of mind to, Undertaker goes for his walk along the ring.
Yeah.
And he's got presence of mind to knock him off there. Like whether or not it's Undertaker talking him through that, I would imagine so.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that two things, he jumps up on Undertaker's back, and Undertaker gives him his full weight, does the whole slams him down. Like that's probably broken ribs of some description.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets choke slammed on the tacks, and not content with just getting slammed on them a little bit, he starts rolling about in them so that there's more on him. And apparently he'd said afterwards I can't remember who this was, he'd said, "Oh, did I forget to get the tacks?" I think it was Undertaker.
Oh.
And he'd said, "Mick, look at your arm." And he's like, he's got them stuck in him. See when we go to the finish, so we've got Undertaker tombstone for the pin win after all that's gone before. I absolutely love that there's just like this one leg of, I don't know if you noticed it, but Mankind's leg is trying to kick. Just like lazily
moving.
Yeah.
And I loved that. And even whether that's intentional or not, I assume he's had it in his mind. He wants to be seen that he's still trying to do something. But I just loved that because, you if you're playing this character that, they've said it all through the time, that doesn't feel pain and all that, enjoys pain, all that kind of thing, he's still kicking. He's still trying. And then the fact that he wants to walk out, he doesn't want to be on the stretcher for leaving the ringside. He wants to go out on his feet. And like you've mentioned, there's nobody there. So how he's got any presence of mind to be doing any of this? He's not, he can't possibly have a good level of thought process, at this point. But he's still doing that kind of thing of wanting to walk out, wanting to be on his feet. It's that match is the craziest thing I've ever seen in wrestling.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel we could probably have another 2-hour conversation about its impact, I think, as well.
Mm-hmm. I'd heard something about after he got back into the back, Vince McMahon apparently hugged him, told him he loved him, thanked him for everything he has done, but told him he was never to do anything like that ever again. But I'm sure he still fully enjoyed the impact it will have had on the business for him.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I just can't get my head around is that this is June, and then in January he has that match with. Even before that, I think he has the whole empty stadium thing with The Rock, doesn't he? And he's throwing him downstairs and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's February '99. Either way, he has that ridiculous I Quit match with The Rock, where The Rock hits him about 1 million times. So, like to go from this then to that is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think he had been one of these guys that had always thought if he had a shorter career, he could make his money, then get out and then watch his kids grow up and stuff like that. But there must have been a few points where he was not close to being able to do that, or close to not being able to do that.
It's the irony. And yeah, the crazy thing is he ends up coming back out.
Yeah. You know how I'd said some of the dislikes are tied in with, I can't look back and say that I'm unhappy that match continued and all, because it's such a spectacle and everything around it and all that. But for the sake of the guy's health, the fact that the match continued, and then he comes out again, he should be in a hospital, but he comes out again towards the end of the main event, which seems crazy to call anything else the main event with what's just happened. But
I know, imagine being Austin or Kane sitting watching that thinking we've got to go on after that. And the thing is that I feel like they go on and it's not a damp squib. I think it's probably due to how over Austin is that they probably know anybody else that could have followed that match.
I mean, yeah, they've got their own good story going, and you know, it's not a wrestling match really. It's a first blood match, but yeah, I always wonder, are the guys in the back who need to follow it, are they actually angry about how good the thing before their match was? Because, you know, it's been said before, people want to steal the show. Of course you want to steal the show. You want your match to be the thing that people go away talking about. And when you are supposed to be the main event, there must be a little bit of you that's sitting there thinking, well, nobody's going to be talking about me tomorrow.
Imagine being Jericho at WrestleMania 18 sitting there watching Hogan rock.
Yeah, it is the same. I suppose I know there's been talk over years when it's happened where could that match have gone on last, because with Hogan Rock it could have, but with the story they wanted to go with this, if they were insistent on having Undertaker and Mankind coming out and getting involved and all that, they had to be this way round really. But Jesus, yeah, it's a hard act to follow, but as you say, Austin's so over that it's never gonna be a damp squib.
And the thing is with this match, it's so silly. Like, so Kane's Austin, I will set myself. Like, why did you say that he would set himself on fire if he didn't win this match? It's quite an odd thing to volunteer, but
yeah,
he says he's going to do this. He comes out fully. There's literally nothing bare on him. Mm-hmm. He was never losing a first blood match because you can't see any. You wouldn't have been able to see any blood anyway.
Yeah, they sort of reference it in the commentary team that apparently Kane usually has one exposed arm, but he doesn't have that in this match. He's got the full length arm sleeves on both sides. But yeah, the deck is so stacked, and it usually is in this stage of the story with Austin. But true. It is hard to look and think, how is he coming out of this with a title? But at the same time, I actually went into this not remembering who wins this match. Right. And I was a little bit surprised because, you know, you just don't think of Austin losing during this era. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that he loses, of all people, he loses the title to Kane. You probably wouldn't expect that to happen. Mm-hmm. I wasn't, I kind of, after watching Hell in a Cell, I thought, like, I don't really remember this match being any good, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good as well.
Yeah, it was entertaining. As you say, so hard to follow what just went, but for what it was, being, you know, a brawl and an attempt to get your opponent to bleed, that side's told a good story. I was as baffled as you were by the whole, you know, set myself on fire thing.
Just love fire. Yeah. The King is, you know, like, there's something wrong with the King, clearly. The fact he's so excited at the prospect of either seeing somebody bleed or somebody set themselves on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a strange character.
Yes. This is just complete chaos. Again, I think we talked about Austin Dude Love match at the last pay-per-view being chaos. This as well, you know, there's a whole thing with the cell coming down, and it almost looks like it's going to come down on top of Austin. Kane's holding it, and then it starts going up when Kane's like hanging over it. And then of course we get Mankind coming out. No idea why we need a ref bump when it's a non-DQ match. That is one of my biggest bugbears. I hate that. And then Undertaker comes out. He's got a cheek to be limping. I know he's got some sort of broken bone or something like that. He's just basically killed a man. He's just out there limping about.
Well, he's going to try and kill another man.
That's it. For some reason. So I was thinking about this. I like what they've done with Undertaker here, and we know that we're building towards SummerSlam. Undertaker and Austin. Yeah. And they consistently have Undertaker getting involved in Austin's business to this point, I think probably the next night, where Austin starts to question where Undertaker's loyalties actually lie, because he is the one after Austin. Did you notice it's really, really obvious that Austin blades? Yes. Like, unbelievably. Yeah. I've never noticed that before in a match, but there you go. After Austin starts bleeding, and I think it's Hebner had been laid out, the Undertaker pours petrol all over him to revive him. He wakes up, sees Austin and rings the bell, and Kane wins the title. I like this sort of subtle, slow build with Undertaker. I think it's been done quite well.
Yeah, I thought he'd taken it a bit far with pouring the gas on the ref. But I suppose what they're looking at is, Undertaker, it's probably quite a tough transition, and you do have to do it gradually, because I think over the years, aside from when he'd first come in, he's generally been so appreciated by the fan base that turning him heel, and he has to be a bit heelish if he's going up against Austin in a program. It's maybe they're maybe just having to gradually add some layers, because a lot of what he's done recently has been more babyface side, like when he came out at the last pay-per-view to make sure McMahon wasn't going to screw Austin in the title match.
Yep.
And he's almost like the conscience of the WWF at that point. Whereas here, some slightly more heelish actions, I suppose throwing a guy off a cage.
Well, the fans are cheering him for it, that's the thing.
They are.
Undertaker, hey.
And, we're so used to Mick Foley through his recent characters having been a heel because he's been up against Austin and all that. So, yeah, they're maybe trying to just put a little bit of heat on Undertaker for what's coming in the program they're going towards. Once it happened, once Austin started bleeding, I remembered immediately how this all ended. And the fact that, the ref gets revived and then he sees and starts ringing the bell. And the sort of shock at Austin losing the belt at this stage, and, how on fire he is and has been. But let's face it, he's not going to be out of the title picture or anything like that.
Well, it's a one day reign for Kane. Reign for Kane, because Austin wins the title on Raw the next night. So yeah, it's stuff like that's quite. I don't know, it leaves a sour taste in it. Like you watch that pay-per-view and it's huge, and it's got the title back next night. Yeah,
it's kind of feels like they've just undone it. Like it never happened.
You can it's like you can hear Bruce Pritchard saying nobody expected it, so that's what we went with for give the title back the next night. But for the spectacle of all, it worked. Really well. So there we go.
Yeah. I think, it's not the best pay-per-view in terms of match quality through the event.
No.
But it's definitely one of the most memorable pay-per-views ever.
Yep, 100%. What do you put... Do you know that Hell in a Cell match is one of the only matches to have its very own Wikipedia page?
Really?
There you go.
Wow. Yeah.
You have to put... It's iconic's probably not even a strong enough word. That you have to put that Hell in a Cell match up there with TLC, Rock Austin as an event, as a
spectacle.
There you go.
Yeah,
it's difficult to place many other things up there with it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those few where anyone who's seen it will remember it. Yeah, and I do have the side of me that. I'm thinking, you mentioned Mick Foley has been panicked about, well, how do we top it? How do we live up to expectations? Imagine you're the next guy that gets tapped on the shoulder and told, we're going to do a Hell in a Cell match. And you're like, well, why? Just don't do it. Just leave it there. Because how do you compete? How will it ever be what that one was? But then I suppose people thought that, because the Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, was a classic in a different way. It wasn't the hugely memorable spots, but
it's that bump off the side of the cage.
Yeah, and there's it had storyline elements of it as well, because you were introducing Kane and all that. But imagine you're the next guy that gets tapped on the shoulder and told, we're going to need you to do the next one. You're like,
well, Adam. I can tell you how you top it. You hang a man.
Oh no, was that the next Hell in a Cell?
It was the next Hell in a Cell on pay-per-view. Mankind and Kane had a Hell in a Cell match in August on Raw, which is, I have no recollection of that. But yeah, the next pay-per-view match is Undertaker Bossman WrestleMania 15.
Didn't we see on WCW recently somebody trying to hang a guy?
We did. DDP's, tried to hang Raven. There you go.
Yeah, so that was the inspiration, and this is how long it's going to take Vince and Bruce to come up with their own version.
And we had Triple H and Cactus Jack and No Way Out 2000, which was a great match. Yeah,
maybe you just have to go into it without it in your mind that you have to top it, because it just has to be its own thing. Yeah. It can't compete.
It's unbelievable. There's been 50 Hell in a Cell. I mean, talk about diluting and oversaturating something.
Yeah, I suppose there's a pay-per-view, isn't there? And there's like 2 matches per pay-per-view that are Hell in a Cell, I think, at least.
Here's something that people enjoy. Let's smash them over the head with it 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, it's a tough one, because I suppose you can see, if you're a little bit struggling for an idea, you're like, that worked. What can we do with this? But the more you do it, the more it dilutes it, the less memorable it's going to be. But this one, the ones you've mentioned actually, just through that course, were still all memorable to me. But I couldn't tell you what happened at the last Hell in a Cell pay-per-view.
Good. Don't want to know. Don't care. Shall I talk a very quick before we wrap up?
Go for it.
Pat Patterson. Hold on, I need to set the scene. So Sable, who we last saw walking out and giving a sort of Oscar-worthy speech to say goodbye to her fans. She'd been beaten by her husband in a match. She was trying to win her freedom from her husband. She got defeated. Anyway, she's been brought back 2 or 3 weeks later as Vince's secretary or something.
PA.
Yeah. She comes out to the ring to announce Vince and his stooges, and for some unexplicable reason, Pat Patterson, of all people, reaches out and touches her on the backside as she's leaving, and she turns around and slaps him. And first of all, JR says, perhaps, what does he say? Uncharted territory.
Yep, that's it.
Uncharted territory for Pat, which in itself is hilarious. And he says, hey, I've never slapped a woman on the microphone.
Yeah, I mean, it was very funny. It did get me. I hadn't put it in my likes, but I've got it listed in my notes how funny it was, and it's just the JR comment kind of making it just funnier.
The way that JR puts these little, like under the radar sort of comments in are quite funny. Yeah, to be fair, he was quite funny during that Too Much Al Snow match as well, where he said something like, the head is now legal, man. What am I saying? And stuff like that. It's pretty good. Yeah,
it's quite. I've been listening to some Tony Schiavone podcasts, and what they sometimes do is they do a watch along of WWF events from when WCW was really hot. So Schiavone had never seen them. He probably had a vague idea of, who the top guys were and all that, but he wasn't seeing the events as they were on. And he's always said that the way JR liked to play commentary was as if it was a legitimate sporting event. Mm-hmm. And see the way JR reacts to some of the nonsense at times that's going on in matches, where he'll say stuff like, I can't believe I'm calling a match where, and he'll be so dry about it. Yeah. And that all cracks Schiavone up, because he's like saying, don't get me wrong, the product's brilliant and JR is the best play-by-play guy that you could have ever had. But he will have been so pissed off doing some of this stuff. And it comes across, you hear it, because he wants it to be all serious.
And I think now, and I've not, to be fair, I've not watched any AEW for a wee bit now, but when I have watched it, I think you can, in his older age, you can hear him being legitimately pissed off with some of the sort of nonsense. Is this what we're doing? Like that sort of thing. It's class.
Yeah.
So let us see shall we take a wee look at where July will take us?
Absolutely.
So, WCW, we're going Bash at the Beach.
Okay.
We've got Bret versus Booker, like I'd said. What else we got? Rey Mysterio makes his return.
Okay.
For the first time in a while. He'll be taking on Jericho.
Nice.
We're getting Kurt Hennig and Goldberg. And I don't know how I feel about this. Hogan and we've got Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman in the main event taking on DDP and Karl Malone.
Okay. That's at least, you know, it's a little bit more interesting to me because I think I saw a little bit of this at the time,
right.
Like the build and stuff like that. But what I wasn't really seeing when I was younger was the WCW pay-per-views.
Right.
I saw the WWF ones because they were like free on Sky, you know. But I remember seeing a lot of the TV around WCW, and I remember the Rodman and the Malone stuff and all that. So that's quite interesting.
I think Rodman was legitimately quite a big fan of WCW. He was in between games in these finals. Between the Bulls and the Jazz, he was taking time out and flying at WCW shows, which is insane.
Yeah, I think he was getting some fines from the Bulls for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they touched on that in that Netflix series, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see what that's like. It sounds like a freak show, but we'll see. Like, on the Nitro after that pay-per-view, Hogan and Savage are straight immediately calling out DDP. I couldn't quite. I thought I must have missed something because obviously DDP's not on that pay-per-view.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With WWF, we've got Fully Loaded. We're going to get Val Venus's long-awaited pay-per-view debut. We've been seeing sort of these video packages for him for a while.
Yep.
We've got Sable and Jacqueline in a bikini contest with Master of Ceremonies Jerry Lawler.
Of course.
Cue lots of shrieking. We get a 2 out of 3 falls match for the Intercontinental Championship, The Rock and Triple H.
Okay. I'm in.
I'm up for that. Mark Henry and the big fat piece of shit. Oh dear, Adam. I don't know if have you watched the Raw after King of the Ring?
I've not.
So, LOD 2000 come out to the ring.
Oh no.
With no Sonny.
Oh no.
And they welcome Paul Ellering back, as their manager. So they're all like sort of hugging it up, and DOA come down on their bikes.
I sense what's coming here.
And Paul Ellering screws over the Legion of Doom and sides with the DOA. So we're getting our long-awaited DOA LOD rematch at the next pay-per-view. It's what's
best for business, I suppose.
Ooh. Certainly is. We get a dungeon match, Owen versus Ken Shamrock.
Oh, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. I don't really remember the match, but I remember it being a thing.
Remember it looking like it was like in a school gym hall or something like that, the mats down and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and main event-wise, we've got the four main guys going against each other in a tag match, Austin and Undertaker versus Kane and Mankind.
Okay.
It looks like it's for the tag titles.
Right.
So Outlaws must drop them at some point. Kane and Mankind look to be the champions. So there you go.
I can get into these. I think there's enough to make me want to watch these from what you've talked through. I've no doubt there'll be some absolute shit shows in there, but you know, I've got some enthusiasm right now, so that's a good start.
Yeah. Booker v. Bret, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Why be excited?
It's normally me that brings you back down, isn't it? I say something like,
they'll make them.
Yeah, this is not going to be just a match between the two of them, clean finish, all that. You know, it's just going to be shenanigans. But you never know.
You do know, but you never know. I feel like ever since we started on this journey, I can't wait to get to SummerSlam 98, and we're nearly there.
Yeah. It's close, and
It's going to be elected.
I assume we're going to do the thing again where we just do the WWF show and the WCW show, and then we're a full step closer, rather than having to do show about.
Oh aye, yes, the way forward. And you never know. I might even have some more interesting facts about people being born in that month.
That's the highlight of the show.
Can you imagine? Yeah. That's been fun. Thanks, Adam.
That's all right. That was good.
Hope you enjoyed your birthday show.
I did.
Your birthday show sounds a little bit seedy.
Yeah, I was thinking if you paid for something that's gonna, because it's a little bit late.
If there's a knock on the door, it's a big fat piece of shit.
Oh no!
And he wants to take off his mask.
I'm kind of now hoping that you've got the wrong address for me.
Well, with that revelation, you enjoy your evening, and I'll see you for episode 25, a quarter of a century.
Yeah, it's a landmark episode. Yeah.
We might even have a special guest.
Awesome.
For that next one. So until then, take it easy. Give us a shout at Outlaws Pod on Instagram. We'd be happy to hear from you. Unless you are... What, Adam? Unless you are
I feel
a
like
fat piece of shit.
Oh, see, I knew you were setting me up for something, and I just totally let you down by not following where you were going.
God damn it. Hey, there's never been a lady. See you for episode 25. Take it easy.
Cheers.